Have you seen my baby? It was 2 a.m. when Percy decided he was ready to head home. After a night out of drinks and socializing, his patience and energy was starting to wear thin. If he wasn't gone too far, he muttered to himself, looking up at the large metal archway above the entrance. Turning around to go, he heard a faint crying drift in from the woods. Glancing over his shoulder, he ignored the sound carrying on his way. He only made it 2 steps before his conscience got the better of him, urging him to go check it out. With a heavy sigh full of self-loathing, he stepped into the park. Walking along the dirt trail, he followed the muffled crying. He called out into the night, but no one answered back. The fall leaves rustled in the trees and crunched under his boots, breaking up the muffled whimper. Continuing along the path going deeper into the park, the crying began to get louder. Soon it was the sobbing that drowned out all the other ambient noise of the leaves. He was right on top of the sound, but there was no one in sight. Percy shouted again, even louder. For a moment the crying stopped long enough for Percy to hear the trickle of nearby water. He had his head snap, turning towards Percy. Startled, Percy let go of the bushes, letting them snap back into place, but for a brief moment, their eyes met. Something at his core felt unsettled by the look in her bright green eyes. Part of him wanted to walk away, but he knew he couldn't. Hello, do you need help to quite make out? Stepping closer, he tried to reassure her. It's okay, he'll get you warmed up. I can, the woman cried out helplessly. Will save my baby, even see the baby's face, but he could hear its soft cries. Well, get your baby out of here. S eyes. A violent shiver shot up his spine, making him almost drop the child. Seeing the eyes up close, something looked off. Her eyes looked predatory, almost reptilian. Pushing the thought out of his mind, he focused on getting the child to safety. We'll come back for you. Hey. Bubbles rose up from the calm water where the woman had been. Looking around in a panic, Percy hoped someone else would appear to help. The eerie silence of being alone worried him more than the wailing. Standing indecisively with the child, he watched as the air bubbles puttered out. He told himself this can't let him debate otherwise. In his indecision, the mother had disappeared beneath the water, leaving Percy with her child. He could feel a weight tugging at his heart, even though he had just met the woman. For a split second he almost jumped in after her, but wondered what would happen to the child if he froze out in the cold. Percy felt the weight of his promise and knew he needed to find help for the child. Heading back down the path he had come in, he moved in a light jog, trying his best not to disturb the child. Fueled by adrenaline, 3 minutes passed in the blink of an eye as the leaves crunched under his feet. Skidding to a stop in the leaves, he looked around in confusion. Did I take a wrong turn? I should have been out of the park by now. Even though there was only a single path winding through the park, it seemed to have led him deeper in instead of out. Picking up the pace, his run turned into a jog, jostling the baby up and down. Despite the rough bouncing, the baby stayed quiet through the trip. Percy hoped that wasn't see the spider web stretching across the path. Walking face first through the web, Perry recoiled back in disgust, brushing the web off his face. Dozens of spiderwebs spanned across the trees bordering the path that stretched out in front of him. Picking up a nearby stick, Perry waved it out in front of him, knocking away the webs. A bundle of tenacious spiderwebs rapidly built up on the end of the stick. The deeper he pushed forward, the denser the spiderwebs became. Normally he would have been panicking from the spiders, but instead took solace in the fact that he strangely had until 5 other identical shapes danced in through the fog that Perry realized what it was. The long legs of a massive grey spider, even larger than himself, had descended down on the path behind him. Surrounded by trees and spider webs, he found himself cornered by the creature. Taking its time, the spider gracefully lowered itself down through the fog, settling down on path. As it set itself down on the path, Perry came face to face with a bull's face. The creature began swaying its head back and forth. Perry almost dropped the baby nestled in his arms from the sheer shock of the creature. Clutching the baby tighter in his arms, Perry made a desperate attempt to escape. Darting between the narrow space between the creature and the spiderwebs clinging to the trees. While the creature was large, it most certainly wasn't taking out a chunk of flesh. Unable to hold the baby through the pain, The small tightly wrapped bundle tumbled down on the path with a thud. Reeling from the creature's strike, Perry found himself tangled in the spiderwebs bordering the path. Perry reached out trying to grab the child, but Calder even cried from hitting the ground. As the bundle of cloth came unfurled, it was confusion that washed over Perry. Instead of a baby in the cloth, there was a tightly bound pile of leaves. No longer bound in the cloth, they scatter in the wind. Rapidly replaying the events from earlier through the night, Perry tried desperately to piece together what had happened. Nothing seemed to make any sense after stepping foot into the park at all. If he just had more time, maybe he could put together what had happened, but time was his chest. The creature jerked his head, tearing away a chunk of Perry. "Have you seen my baby T walking at all?" She was slithering her way down the path. The woman's bedraggled black hair now hung down over the body of a snake instead of a woman. Perry wanted to scream out one more time but could only manage a faint gasp before the creature's bullhead slammed down on him once more. Please like and follow.